In this lesson, we're going to look at dividing decimals. Here's our first example, 8 2/10 divided by 5. So we have a decimal divided by a whole number. The first thing that we're going to do is set this problem up as long division. So we'll have the 8.2 inside the division symbol as the dividend and the 5 in front as the divisor. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is line up the decimal point that's in the dividend with where we're going to have the decimal point in our answer, which we call the quotient. So we're going to just drag that decimal point straight up, and that's going to tell us where the decimal point will be in our quotient. Okay, now we can start doing our division. 5 goes into 8 one time. 5 times 1 gives us 5. Subtract, we get 3 left over. Then we can bring down the other 2. We're not worried about the decimal point, just bring down the 2. 5 goes into 32. 6 times, 5 times 6 is 30. Subtract, and we have a remainder of 2. Now we don't want to have any remainders when we are working with decimals. Okay, so we're not really going to write this quotient as 1.6 with a remainder of 2. Typically, we're going to keep extending the digits out of that quotient, ideally until we don't have a remainder anymore. So this is how we'll do that. Okay, we're going to add zeros to the dividend. So right after that 2 that's in our dividend, we're going to place a 0. Okay, because remember that we can always add zeros at the end of a decimal and it doesn't change the value of that decimal number. Okay, so perfectly fine for us to do that. And now that 0 we can bring down. And now 5 goes into 20, 4 times, 5 times 4 is 20, subtract. Now we have no remainder. So our final answer, our quotient, is 1 64 hundredths. Our next example, we have 2 16 hundredths divided by 8 tenths. So this time our dividend is a decimal and our divisor is a decimal. We start off by setting it up with long division just like before. Okay. Now when we have a divisor that's a decimal, we're going to change this a little bit first because we want that divisor to actually be a whole number, just to keep the process simpler for ourselves. So all we're going to do is move that decimal point over one place to the right so that now our divisor will become a whole number. So now that decimal point moves over so that it's after the 8. Okay, now our divisor will be the whole number 8. And of course, we can't just do that to the divisor. We also have to do it to the dividend as well. So we're going to move that decimal point so that it's after the 1, just one place to the right. And what we're really doing mathematically is multiplying both of these numbers by 10. Multiplying by 10 moves the decimal to the right one place. Okay. So now our problem becomes 21.6 divided by 8. And we have a whole number for our divisor, which is what we wanted. Okay. Now we set up everything just as before. We're going to line that decimal point up in the quotient, just drag it straight up from the dividend. And now we move forward with our division. 8 goes into 21 2 times. Multiply, we get 16. Subtract, we get 5 left over. Bring down the 6. 8 goes into 56. 7 times. Multiply, we get 56. No remainder left. So our final answer is 2 7 tenths. Okay. Now when we are dividing by powers of 10, and remember powers of 10 are 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, etc. We can just keep adding zeros to the end to find more powers of 10. Okay. Let's take a look and see if we can find the pattern here. Okay, our first number, we have 1,234.5 divided by 10, which will equal 123.45. Now notice that the decimal point moved to the left one place value. If we divide that same number by 100, the decimal point moves 2 places to the left. So now it's after the 2. And if we divide by 1,000, the decimal point moved 3 places to the left. So, you see the pattern? Okay, very similar to what we saw when we were multiplying by powers of 10. Except when we multiply by powers of 10, the decimal point was moving to the right. This time when we're dividing, the decimal point's moving to the left. But to figure out how many place values the decimal point will move, you just count how many zeros are in the power of 10 that you're dividing by. So when we divide it by 10, 10 has just 1 0, so the decimal point moved 1 place to the left. Divide by 100, since 100 has 2 zeros, we move 2 places to the left. And that pattern would continue on and on. Okay, so now you know how to divide by decimals and also how to divide decimals by powers of 10.